quoted a Baraisa, and the question is, which Tana is the author of the Baraisa? Rabbi Yehuda Chametz Stomach Amar. Rabbi Yehuda made no distinction when he talked about Chametz that after Pesach would be Asr Ba'ana. He didn't say whether it's a Chametz of a Jew or a Chametz of a non-Jew. So if it would be according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Mishnah would have to say that Chametz Shavuot Lav Pesach would be Asr for the non-Jew. He didn't say that. It said clearly that the non-Jew, you could benefit from a non-Jew's chametz. Right? Chametz shel nochi shavuot lav pesach muter bano, said the Mishnah. So the Gemara wants to say our Mishnah cannot be Rabbi Yehuda, who made no distinction l'chura of chametz of Lav Pesach, that it could be asr bano no matter what kind of chametz it is. Rab Shimon said there is no isra hana b'chametz shavuot lav Pesach. And our Mishnah said it would be asr for Yisrael. And according to Rab Shimon, Yisrael nami mishra kashari. It should be permitted if it would be the sheet of Rab Shimon. The Rabbi Yossi Aglili was the Tana who said that chametz is mutter bano even in Pesach. Right? Afilu talks about a nami mishra kashari bano. So who is the author of our Mishnah? Amar Ravacha. Right? So there's two explanations. The Amoyra Ravacha Bar Yaakov says, La'olam Rabbi Yehudi. It is Rabbi Yehudi. But our Havamina that chametz of a Nochri would also be Asr after Pesach, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is not correct. Because really, Rabbi Yehuda's Yolif Sa'or Da'achila mis Sa'or De'Re'iyah. In one of the psukim by Pesach, it says, Lo Yera'eh L'cha Sa'or. You should not see L'cha Sa'or. So he connects Re'iyah with consumption. Because, let's just remind ourselves, Rabbi Yehuda learned the Isra Noah by Chametz Shavuot Lav Pesach, Chametz after Pesach, from Lo Sochal Alav Chametz. That pasuk is what he used for Chametz Shavuot Lav Pesach. And now we're learning that Rabbi Yehuda connects Re'iyah with Achila. Meaning, Masor de Re'iyah, Shel Cha'iyah Taruah Vel Taruah, Shel Achem Shel Gavoah. The special diuk of the pasuk, Lo Yera'eh L'cha Sa'or, means there's an Isser of Bal Yera'eh Chametz of your own Chametz. But Chametz that belongs to a Goy, or Chametz even that belongs to Hegdish, which is not L'cha, is permitted. Right? Why
don't we say Acherim could be another Jew, rather than just maybe be just your own? But Acherim
it's not for us to decide what Acherim is. Chazal, in the drush of Rabbi Yehuda, Acherim means non-Jew.
Okay.
So you may not see chametz of any Ba Yerah is your own chametz, but you also cannot see another Jew's chametz. That's why every Jew has to take care of his chametz through tashbisu. But Hegdish has no requirement because it's not l'cha, and non-Jews are not part of l'cha. So af sa'or dachila, when we said lo sochal alav chametz, referring to the Yisra Hana by Chametz Shavuot Lav Pesach, meaning, according to Rabbi Yehuda, there is no Isser Hana of Chametz Shavuot Lav Pesach after Pesach, not by Goyish Chametz and not by Hegdish Chametz, and that therefore, according to Rav Acha Bar Yaakov, our Mishnah is according to Rabbi Yehuda fits very well. And really, really, these things are permitted lachila after Pesach as well. But I did the Tana Yisrael Asr Bana, since we discussed, the Mishnah discussed that there's an Isra No for Yisrael's chametz after Pesach. Tananami Denachri Mutter Bana. It dealt in the language of Hana, but really it's Mutter lachila after Pesach as well. And uvidinu di boiler the mitzvah that feel b'toch zmanu mutter bana. The lawyer alachas saor is even during Pesach, meaning it's mutter to derive hana from chametz of a nochri on Pesach and chametz of hekdesh on Pesach. That feel b'toch zmanu mutter bana. But I did the Tanah Yisrael lachas manu Tananami the nochri lachas manu. Since the whole Mishnah was talking about chametz she'arvelav Pesach, we're talking about achas manu. So the Tanna discussed after, but really, according to this Shita, it would be permitted during Pesach as well. Okay, that's the way Rav Acha Bar Yaakov learns. Rava learns just the opposite. La'olam Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon is the one who said that that Chometz Shavalav Pesach is mutter bana, even for a Jew. Rab Shimon knosa konis. Really midoraisa, it's mutter bana. But our Mishnah that says it's aser bana, it's a knas. Oil v'avra lev v'yirov v'yamotze. Since the Jew should have gotten rid of his chametz, and by not getting rid of it, he was over by yirov v'yamotze. So this is a knas to say that it's aser bana after Pesach. But that's only rabbinic. Midoraisa, he would be permitted. Now, Bishlam Rava, the way Rava explained who the author of our Mishnah is, that is Rab Shimon. Hainu diktani shel Yisrael aser. So it said it's aser for Yisrael. Mishum shenemar lo yeroah. So because there's a pasuk lo yeroah, and the way we just explained, because the Jew did not follow the dictates of Lo Yeroah, we give him a knas. El Rav Acha Bar Yaakov, right? Rav Acha Bar Yaakov understood our Mishnah, Kohen Rabbi Yehuda, who uses the pasuk of Lo Yisachal, Lo Yachel Chametz, the Achila pasuk for Israel. El Rav Acha Bar Mishum Lo Yachel Chametz b'boile. Why would the Mishnah not use that pasuk instead of Lo Yeroah? So the Gemara says, Mi Sovris Aseifa Koi, because that part of the Mishnah is not dealing with the Seifa. It's our Reisha Koi. It's on the first part of the Mishnah. V'hachi Kamer. Chometz shel nachri she'arvelav Pesach mutter ba'ana. Why? Mishum shenemar lo yera lecha, which is exactly the way Rav Acha Bar Yaakov learned. Shelcha iya taroah, aval taroah shelachem shel gavoah. The yalom or dachila misa or deriyah. So that's Rav Acha Bar Yaakov. By the way, the Rambam paskins, like Rava, that Chometz she'arvelav Pesach is, even of a Jew, is mutter bana midoraisa, but it's aser bana rabbinically, midivrei sofrim. Exactly like Rava's pshat in our Gemara. Which is not unusual. Remember, Abaya and Rava argue like over 350 times in Shas, and we paskin like Abaya 6 times, Yal Kagam. Yal Kagam, 6 times. There's 6 cases with the abbreviations, Yud, Ayin, Lamed, Yehu Shalom Midas, and Yal Kagam. That's the 6 times in Shas we paskin like Abaya against Rava. So it's not surprising that the Rambam paskin like Rava here against Rav Acha Bar Yaakov as well. In general, most of our halachas we paskin like Rava. In whenever in Shas we see machlokas Abai and Rava. Okay. V'ozdul tamay. The Gemara says that Rav Acha Bar Yaakov and Rava are consistent with what we know their opinion is. The Itmar. The person eats chametz of nochri after Pesach. L'divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rava Omar loike, Rav Acha Bar Yaakov Omar eino loike. Rava Omar loike, because Rava says lo yalif Rabbi Yehuda se'or da'achila mise'or deriyah. Rava says Rabbi Yehuda does not learn this connection of Sa'or Dachila Misa'or Dera'iyah. So he does not exempt the chametz of a goy from being Asr Midoraisa after Pesach. It's only if you learn that din of Sa'or Dachila Misa'or Dera'iyah. But Rav Acha Bar Yaakov, we know, learns that connection between Sa'or Dachila Misa'or Dera'iyah. So therefore, ain't a loket. Because lo yireh lecha Sa'or, you're not allowed to see your chametz, but you're allowed to see the chametz of a goy. That's why, according to this first pshat, we say that Rav Acha Bar Yaakov says he doesn't get malchus. However, says the Gemara now, Hader be Rav Acha Bar Yaakov me'ahi. We see that Rav Acha Bar Yaakov changed his mind. Where do we see that he changed his mind? The Tanya. Ha'oichel chametz shel hegdish b'moyed. Person ate chametz that belongs to the Beis Hamikdash during Pesach. Moal. So forget about the prohibitions regarding chametz. In general, if a person benefits from something that belongs to hegdish, you're over a prohibition of me'ilah. You are moil behegdish. When you're moil behegdish, you have to bring a korban, an osher me'ilos. You have to pay back to the Beis Hamikdash the value of the item you benefited from, plus a fine of a fifth. Now, me'ilah is you're only violates me'ilah if you benefited something monetarily that has value. Because me'ilah means there's something of value that belongs to hegdish, and I appropriated its use. But if something doesn't have value, you can't be over me'ilah. So the person who holds, when it says chametz shel hegdish b'moyed, he's moal, he's obviously holding that chametz has value. Now, the question is, why does that chametz have value? Now, if you hold that chametz after Pesach is mutter, so it might not have value now, it's going to have value later though. So that's called something davar hagoyrim lemaman. So we're going to see there's a machlokes. Is davar hagoyrim lemaman kimaman dami or lav kimaman dami? So if you say that thing, something, so for example, if chametz is osir now and osir after Pesach, then this chametz has no value. So you would not be chayv me'ilah. So, but if you hold that chametz, I understand now doesn't have any value, but it will have value after Pesach, like Rab Shimon, who held that chametz after Pesach is mutter intrinsically, right? There's a knas, the Rabbanon, we say osir bando, like we just paskin. But intrinsically, midaraisa, it has value. So it's going to have, so since it intrinsically has value, there could be me'ilah if you hold davar hagoyrin lamam and kimam and dami. So these issues we have to keep in mind in our minds as we learn through this sugya. So, and that's going to prove to us why Rav Acha Bar Yaakov eventually, it seems like he changed his mind. So the Tanya chametz shel hegdish b'moed moal, the Yesh Omrim loy moal. The Yesh Omrim says no, there's no me'ilah. So man Yesh Omrim. So who is the Yesh Omrim that says there's no me'ilah? Rav Yochanan, Rav Nechunya ben Akana he. It's the Tana Rav Nechunya ben Akana. The Tanya. Rav Nechunya ben Akana haya oises Yom HaKippurim k'Shabbos l'tashlumim. Ma Shabbos mischayv benafsho potem l'tashlumim. Af Yom HaKippurim mischayv benafsho potem l'tashlumim. A person goes into his neighbor's field on Shabbos, and there's a haystack. That's the classic case of the Gemara. And he lights the haystack on fire. Now, when you light the haystack on fire, you have violated one of the Avos Malachos of burning. But I've also damaged my neighbor's haystack, so I owe him money. But the act of destroying the haystack and the act of violating Shabbos happened at the exact moment. So we have a concept called kam le midirabimine. If you have two punishments that you ascribe to because of an act you did, and they happened exactly at the same time, you get punished only with the more severe punishment. So since by violating Shabbos you get skila, you get the death penalty, and you have a monetary payment, I've got to pay money to my friend, I'm potter to pay. Since I'm giving up my life, I don't have to pay. That's from the principle of kam le midirabimine. Now, Yom Kippur, if I violate Yom Kippur, if I light a fire in Yom Kippur, I'm not chayiv a death penalty. I'm chayiv kores. Kores is machlokas exactly what kores is. Some say it's a misa b'dei shamayim, that a person dies between the age of 50 and 60, doesn't reach the age of 60. Or he's nichras me'amav, he doesn't have, he lacks a certain share in olam haba, but it's certainly not corporal physical punishment bebezdin. So the question is, did kam le midirabimine hold by kores as well, just like by Shabbos? So Nachoni ben Akana learned, he said yes, Yom HaKippurim is like Shabbos l'tashlumin. Ma Shabbos mischai b'nafsho potem na tashlumim. Af Yom HaKippurim mischai b'nafsho potem in tashlumim. So now we understand why Rav Nachoni ben Akana would hold there's no me'ilah. So if somebody ate chametz b'Pesach and he gets kares, he's potter from other oinshim, including me'ilah. There's no me'ilah because he already got kares. It's like a case where I damaged my friend's property. Well, here I damaged Hegdish, but it's a lesser punishment since I'm getting kares for Pesach. However, both those Tanoim, certainly the one who says Me'ilah, and even Rav Nachoni ben Akana held that chametz had some value. It was mutter banot, even after Pesach. And l'chura, that baraisa is like Rab Shimon, who held that chametz is going to be permitted after Pesach. That's why it has value. So according to Rav Nachoni ben Akana, it doesn't make a difference that it has value. You're potter from Me'ilah because of the principle of kam le midirabimine. Now, Rav Yosef Omar, he has a different understanding than Rabbi Yochanan does. In the machlokas, when we say chomet shel hekdesh b'moed moal, the yesh omrim lo moal, Rav Yosef has a different understanding in the machlokas. B'poidin es hakodshim lachila leklovim kamiflagi. That when you're poide hegdish, can you be poide hegdish, right? Let's say you have a shlomim that has a mum. So you can be poide it and transfer the kedusha to money, and you can buy a new korban with it. The question is, do I have to be able to eat from what the value that I get when I'm poide something? Do I have to be able to eat it? Or if I can't eat it and only throw it to the dogs, that's the only thing I can do with it. Can you be pointed kodshim for that purpose? Manda Omar Moal Ksavar poidinus kodshim lachila leklavim. That I can be poide hegdish, even if it doesn't have any value, I'm not allowed to eat it at this time. And it's osir banoah. And even though later on after Pesach, there's going to be value. He's not involved in that machlokas. He holds like Rabbi Yossi Aglili, who said that you're allowed to benefit from chametz even during Pesach. Remember, the third time Rabbi Yossi Aglili said, "Toch zmano is shari ba'no." Now, what am I going to do with chametz on Pesach? I can't eat it. Now, what kind of hanoah can I have? Well, I can feed it to my dogs. So, can I be poida hegdish if the only thing I can do with it is to feed it to my dogs? That's the machlokas. According to the opinion that I can feed my dogs with it, so I can use it, and I can be poided, and therefore I'd be moel behegdish. Umandam or loy moel ksav ain't poided. The one who says that if all you're going to do is feed it to your dogs, there's no ability of doing pdi of such chametz. That's the point of the machlokas between the one who says moel versus the one who says lo. Now, Ravacha bar Rava tanala. Rav Yosef Ravacha learned in front of the sheet of Rav Yosef differently. The kula alma ain't poida zakot shalachila club. Really, you cannot be poida hegdish if you can't eat it. If the only thing you can do is throw it to the dogs. So then what's the machlokas? Why does one person say you're moal and the other says you're not? Hakabah kamifliki, this very question we brought up a few minutes ago. Bedover agorim lemam kimam and dami. Something doesn't have value right now, but it's going to have a value a week from now because Pesach's going to be over. And according to Rav Shimon, intrinsically, you're allowed to have anah from this. So technically, this chametz right now doesn't have value, but it's going to have value in a week. So this item is a dover hagoyrim lemam. It's not mammon now, but it's goyrim l'mammon. So do you consider a davar hagorim l'mammon as mammon? And therefore, if it's mammon, then it has value, and I took it away from hegdish, so I'm chayiv me'ilah. But if I hold that something that is goyrim l'mammon is not considered mammon right now, then when I use it and it belongs to hegdish, I didn't deprive hegdish of anything of value because it has no value right now. Because Dover Agorim L'Mammon is not considered Mammon. That's basically what the Gemara is saying. Mandamer Mo'al Ksavar, Dover Agorim L'Mammon, Kim Mammon Dami. And therefore, when I make use of it, I violated Mila. Umanda Amar Lo Mo'al Ksavar, Dover Agorim L'Mammon, Lav Kim Mammon Dami. And therefore, there's no Mila. Now, here comes our proof. We brought this whole sugya because we wanted to say Ravacha bar Yaakov changed his mind regarding the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda about this Rabbi Yehuda Yoliv Sa'or da Achilim is Sa'or da Re'iyah. So let's just keep that in mind. Ravacha bar Yaakov Omar, really, I'll give you a different explanation in the machlokas between the person who says you're moel be'egdish if you eat chametz on Pesach versus not. Really, everybody holds that an item that right now doesn't have value, but will have value in a week from now. So it's a davar hagorim l'mammon is considered mammon. So then why does anybody hold that there's no me'ilah? V'hacha beplukted Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Shimon kamiflagi. This is the machlokas Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Shimon. Man domer loy mo'al Rabbi Yehuda. The Omar afla achra Pesach aser bana. Remember, we said Rabbi Yehuda holds Chomet Sharval Pesach is aser bana even after Pesach. According to Rabbi Shimon, it's permitted, but it's just we do a knas. There's a rabbinic zera that the Jew is aser bana. But in Torah, it's mutter bana. So really, davar mammon kagorim mammon dami. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, it has no value now. It has no value a week from now because it's going to be aser bana permanently, and that's the machlokas. Mandar malk Rabbi Yehuda, mandar malk Rabbi Shimon. But I don't understand. Who said that both a Gentile's chametz and Hegdish's chametz is not aser bana after Pesach. Remember, we said lo yira elachas saor to exclude the chametz of a nachri and chametz of hegdish. But the way Rav Acha Bar Yaakov just explained the machlokas in the Baraisa, whether it's moal or not moal, it's clear that he holds that Rabbi Yehuda holds that hegdish's chametz also doesn't have value after Pesach. Ella Hader be Rav Acha Bar Yaakov me'ahi. Rav Acha Bar Yaakov obviously changed his mind from that shita. Wow, what a sugya! I mean, that's the whole point, that this whole complicated case was brought to show that Rav Acha can't hold of what we said, that he holds, he compares the re'iyah to the achila. Now, very interesting. All of a sudden, Rav Ashi Omar. Now, I make this point many times. Who is Rav Ashi? Rav Ashi was the final editor of Talmud Bavli. So let's say Talmud Bavli started writing down Talmud Bavli in the year 200, because Rabbi Yehuda Nasi died about 180 CE, about that time. And then they took the Mishnayos and they started working on writing down the various Gemaras on the Mishnayos. And it was a process of 200 to 250 years. I think Ravina and Rav Ashi lived in about 400, about that time. They were the final, they assembled all of these pieces on every Mishnah. When they bring a Itmar, whatever, they're the ones who were the final editors. So many times at the end of the sugya, all of a sudden we'll see Rav Ashi Omar. Obviously, Rav Ashi was somehow unhappy with the way this sugya was going, because we could have ended right here. Hader be Rav Acha Bar Yaakov me'ahi and finished. No. Rav Ashi Omar, no. The Kula Alma ain pointed. So first of all, he summarizes how we paskin. First of all, he says, if we cannot benefit directly from the thing that we're being poided, like if the only thing we could do is throw it to the dogs, so we're not poided, we can't be poided hegdish. That's number one. Number two, Dover agoyim lemamen, lav kamamen dami. That something that, even though it might have value a week from now, if it doesn't have intrinsic value now, it's not considered mammon. And therefore, that's not a reason to have a machlokes between me'ila and not me'ila. He says this is the machlokes between Rabbi Yossi Aglili and the Chachamim. According to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, even chametz of a Jew is mutter bano, even during Pesach. Let me repeat that. The third Tana, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, held that chametz bePesach was mutter bano for a Jew. So therefore, it has intrinsic value right now. If you hold it saucer bano, but only going to have ano next week, but Rav Ashi, according to him, holds if mammon, something that is goyim l'mammon is not considered mammon. So right now, when I'm eating hegdish of chametz of hegdish, I'm not moral because it doesn't have any intrinsic value. But if I hold like Rav Yossi Aglili, that chametz of everybody during Pesach, certainly of hegdish, but even of every Jew, obviously we don't paskin that way. But that's how Rav Ashi learned that that baraisa of mal versus ein mal is simple. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Rabbanon, Mandam Ramal Rabbi Yossi, who held that chametz during Pesach is mutter. Mandam Ramal Rabbanon. Okay. Omar Rav. We start a new sugya, the sugya of Taruvis. And I'm just going to give a little introduction. This is the main subject matter of Yoredeya 98 through 110, the whole area of forbidden mixtures. We've been dealing a lot with that in Surim Rabbanon over the last couple of years. So, in general, there are two things. Something is called min b'mino and min b'sheino mino. Let's say you have a piece of steak, kosher steak that falls into non-kosher steak. So they taste the same, they have the same name, but certainly we identify min b'mino as the same taste. So, or let's say it's a liquid. Tomato sauce, it falls into tomato sauce. One is kosher, one is not, for whatever reason, why there's some unkosher product in that. So min b'mino, they have the same taste. So mirkar adin, once achrei rabim lahatos, once you have a majority, two against one, there's nullification, midoraisa. The chachamim require by min b'mino 60, but that's only rabbinic. Now, min b'sheino mino, a drop of milk fell into a chulent. They obviously have different tastes. You can taste it differently. So we hold that even if the item is not there anymore, but you just have the flavor, we say tam ki'ikr, the flavor is like the item being there. And you need 60 to nullify the taste. And up until 60 would be osir midoraisa. So there's a difference between min b'mino versus min b'sheino mino. That min b'mino is nullified just when you have the majority. You need 60 rabbinically. Min b'sheino mino, 1 in 60 you need midoraisa in order for that mixture to be permitted to be eaten. That's how we paskin today in Shulchan Aruch, in Tzadik Ches, Seif Aleph and Seif Beis. But we are going to see the development of that halacha. That's how the halacha finally is paskin. But it's after great machloikas in the Gemara, and then the Rishonim, the Rashba, the Ran, the Rosh, until we get to the final halacha that I just enunciated, how we hold ourselves based on the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah, the Shach, and the Pri Megadim today, how we would paskin in our Hilchos Kashrus. But that's not going to be apparent as we go through these sugyas. So we just have to hold on. In the end, I will summarize again what we said and how we got there. And we will see a little bit going through these Gemaras. This sugya is here in Pesachim, and it's also in Avodah Zarah, and there's also a few blot in Chulin. Eventually, at the end of this sugya, we'll summarize how we got to the final halacha, as I said. But as we go through this sugya, what's being said is not necessarily the halacha as it comes out today. But we'll build there. Amar Rav. Chametz bismano. We'll see what that chametz, let's say during Pesach. So bein b'mino, if chametz fell into other chametz, like flour with flour, or a matzah that was somehow chametzdik fell into other matzah. Because that would be yavesh b'yavesh, dry and dry. Flour with flour would be considered like lach b'lach. Even though it's dry, remember, you cannot separate when you mix flour with flour. So when you mix fluid with fluid, you can't separate that. So that's called lach b'lach, moist with moist. When you mix up one matzah with another matzah, that's called yavish b'yavish. The dinim are sometimes a little different between that. So, but here we're talking about b'mino, meaning, let's say, a matzah with a matzah, or bein shelo b'mino. Chametz fell into a chulin, right? Osir. So the taruvis is prohibited. Now, shelo bizmano, which means chametz she'aver lava Pesach, chametz after Pesach, b'mino osir. Chametz with its own kind would be prohibited. Shelo b'mino mutter. If it got mixed with something not of its own min, it would be permitted. Now, the Gemara doesn't understand b'may askinan. What are we talking about? Are we talking about chametz that gives flavor? How can you say that if there's a mixture shelo b'mino, it's permitted? If you can taste the prohibited item, why should it be mutter? Right? Shelo b'zmano shelo b'mino mutter? Hayoiv taima. It's giving flavor. Ela b'mashahu. We're talking about, no, 1 in 1,000. We're not talking about, or let's say anything above 60. That would define mashu. Mashu is any amount, even without taste. So what Rav is saying, after Pesach, chametz that got mixed into something min shelo b'mino, it's permitted. Because again, there's going to be no taste. But min b'mino would be osir. We'll have to see why he's stringent regarding that. So el b'mashu chametz bizmano. So chametz during Pesach, if it got mixed with bein b'mino, bein shelo b'mino, if it got mixed with, let's say chametz tikka matzah with chametz tikka matzah, that's min b'mino, or chametz fell into a cholent, either way, it would be osir, even b'mashu. And Rav letameh, Rav is consistent with what we know Rav holds. The Rav Shmuel, the Amar Tarvayu, they hold like Rabbi Yehuda, famous sheet of Rabbi Yehuda that we don't paskin like. But this was the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, called Isurin Shabbat Torah, B'mino B'mashu, all prohibitions, Basar B'chalav, Nevela, Chalev, everything, all Isurin Shabbat Torah. If something, min b'mino, got mixed up, it will be already Asr B'mashu. And if it got mixed up with something shelo b'mino, then it depends. If it gives flavor, it would be osir. If it doesn't give flavor, it would be permitted. B'nois and tam. Now, Rav Gozer chametz bizmano shelo b'mino atumino. Really, chametz bizmano, chametz during Pesach, if it got mixed min shelo b'mino, he would hold it's permitted. But he makes a gzeira by shelo b'mino because mino is osir. He also makes a gzeira shelo bizmano after Pesach, b'mino osir, ki Rabbi Yehuda. That min b'mino would be prohibited, like we said. Rabbi Yehuda always holds that b'mashu it's osir. But to the extent where after Pesach, min b'shelo b'mino is going to be mutter according to Rav. De shelo bizmano. V'shelo b'mino atumino, meaning to make a gzeira after Pesach when it's min b'sheino mino to such an extent kula hai lo gazrina. That's Rav. Shmuel Amar chametz b'zman chametz b'Pesach min b'mino would be asur. Min b'shelo b'mino is mutter, and shelo b'zman, which means chametz after Pesach, bein b'mino bein shelo b'mino mutter. If chametz got mixed min b'mino or whether it's got mixed min b'sheino, it doesn't make a difference, mutter. And the Gemara explains, chametz bizmano b'mino aser, chametz during Pesach, min b'mino is prohibited, Shmuel tamei, like we just said, the Rav u Shmuel, the Omer Tarvayu kol yisron shabator, min b'mino is aser b'mashu, doesn't make a difference how much is in there, it's going to be prohibited, like Rabbi Yehuda. Shelo b'mino, you have to have taste, b'nois and tam. So 60 would nullify, less than 60 would be prohibited. And he does not make a gzeira shelo b'mino because of mino, right? Shelo b'mino and atu mino lo gazar. Now shelo b'zmano chametz after Pesach, bein b'mino and bein shelo b'mino, whatever the taruvus is, min b'mino min shelo b'mino mutarin. Ke Rab Shimon, because Rab Shimon held like Rab Shimon regarding chametz shavuot Pesach that it's permitted. So even if it has taste, it would be permitted. So the Gemara is going to ask later on, yeah, but Reb Shimon said it's permitted midoraisa, but he made a knas. So how could Shmuel say it would be completely mutter? We'll deal with that later. So up until now, we've learned the shita of Rav and Shmuel. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, third shita, chametz bizmano, right? Chametz during Pesach when it's aser. Bein b'mino, bein shelo b'mino is aser b'nois and tam. If you can taste the chametz, whether it's min b'mino, well, min b'mino is, you're never going to taste it because the taste is the same. But what it means is you've got more than 60. If you've got more than 60, it's permitted. And you've got less than 60, it would be prohibited. That's during Pesach. Shelo bizmano. What about after Pesach? Bein b'min and bein shelo b'min and mutter. If you have a taruvis, min b'mino, or min b'sheno mino, it's completely permitted, mutter. Now, chometz bizmano bein b'mino bein shelo b'mino b'noisen tam. Why Rabbi Yochanan tameh? Because now we see the other shita like we paskin like, not like Rabbi Yehuda, which is the Chachamim against Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish to Omer Tarvayu, Kol Yisur Shabbat Torah, all prohibitions, Basar B'Chalav, Nevela, Orla, Chalev, anything that's prohibited. Bein b'minon, bein shelo b'minon, whether the mixture is min b'mino, the same thing, or min b'sheino, mean like milk into a chulin. The isser is there b'noisen tam. If there's 1 to 59 or less, then it's prohibited. If you have 60 to nullify, doesn't make a difference whether it's min b'mino, whether it's min b'mino, it's going to be permitted. By the way, gentlemen, we hold like this. The only difference, like I told you, is min b'sheino mino, because it gives flavor, and we say tam ke'ikr, we hold that it's isser midoraisa up until 60. That means if you eat a taruvis where there isn't 60, it's also midoraisa. That's only min b'sheino mino, like milk that falls into a chulin, where milk has a different taste in chulin. But if I have something that falls into something exactly the same thing where you can't differentiate taste, once I have rov, 2 against 1, midoraisa, it's already nullified. The Chachamim require us to have 60 rabbinically. But if I ate something that was more than 2 to 1 of the item, if it was like 30 to 1, I'm certainly did not commit a doraisa act. I committed only a rabbinic act. That's min b'sheino mino. That's min b'mino. Min b'mino is nullified 2 to 1. Anything above, you need 60 only rabbinically. So back to the Gemara. That's during Pesach. Shelo bizmano, after Pesach, bein b'mino, bein shelo b'mino mutarim. Why? Reb Shimon. Because Reb Shimon holds chametz after Pesach is completely permitted. Okay, and then tomorrow we'll learn the final halacha. It's a small blot, so I think we can learn tomorrow.